Good afternoon. I'm Carol Luper, a member of the Columbus Metropolitan Club Board of Trustees and a retired reporter. May I tell you, reporters never retire. You just stop getting paychecks, but you're still in touch and following stories. Very good to see you all. Today our forum is called Be the Boss. It will focus on the importance of supporting entrepreneurship to foster an economically vibrant community. Small business is the heartbeat of America, and for far too long, the Midwest in particular has lagged behind both coasts in encouraging business startups and self-employment. Being your own boss can be very challenging, but it can be lucrative and satisfying in many ways. But how do you get started? What resources are there available for you to go your own way? Well, we look to our experts today for answers, so let me welcome our panel today. CEO of the Economic Community Development Institute, Ina Kinney. President and CEO of the Center for Social Enterprise Development Leadership, Allan Proctor. Co-founder of Slow Money Central Ohio, Lisa Daris. District Director, Ohio Small Business Development Center at Columbus State Community College, Ariana Ulloa-Olavarrieta. And I hope I got that right. I practiced a little bit. Also, the founder of Regionomics, Bill LaFayette, will speak. Now, Bill, you're going to make opening remarks, and then the podium will go over to Ariana for the conversation. Please welcome our speakers. And Bill, the podium is yours.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you all for being here. We've had several forums at CMC over the years looking at starting and funding new businesses. But those forums have generally focused on tech startups and the attraction of venture capital. That's very important work, but this conversation is going to focus on the vast majority of startup businesses that are not tech and don't have access to venture capital. My argument is that these businesses convey benefits to the regional economy that are very different from tech firms, but just as important. And the economic development community, I think, needs to pay a whole lot more attention to these businesses than it often does. The standard argument in economic development runs like this. Tech firms we like because they have the greatest potential of growing to national or international scope. They're also the most likely to generate high-paying jobs. Economic developers, by and large, tend to ignore small retailers and service businesses, arguing that these businesses only circulate income that's in the community already, rather than attracting new money, as tech businesses do. Economic developers also argue that local businesses just develop and grow on their own based on whatever the community's needs happen to be. Trying to force that process is a waste of time and ultimately sets firms up to fail. I used to make that exact same argument, but it's wrong. The problem is that the argument doesn't consider the first of at least two benefits that locally owned, locally serving businesses provide. These businesses trap income that would otherwise leak out of the Central Ohio economy. Chain retailers, chain restaurants centralize purchasing, distribution, and business services in order to be efficient. Franchisees pay for these services with their franchise fees and payments to distant suppliers. As a result, many of the dollars spent at these establishments leave the local economy immediately, and consequently, the community impact of these dollars is zero. But locally owned businesses build local networks of suppliers and service providers. Their expenditures become income for those service providers. Profits and executive salaries also stay local. That additional activity supports jobs and increases income in Central Ohio rather than supporting jobs and increasing income in other places. A firm called Civic Economics has looked extensively at this impact in locations around the country. They've found that the local impact of a dollar spent at a locally owned retailer can be 3 or 4 times as great as one spent at a chain. So if we assume that the difference in this impact here in Columbus equals the national average, a 10% shift in total retail and restaurant spending to local businesses translates to more than $1.1 billion with a B that stays in Central Ohio rather than going elsewhere. Now, in a $100 billion economy that Central Ohio has, that's not a huge earth-shattering impact, but it's definitely big enough to leave a mark. Trapping dollars that would otherwise leave the region is exactly the same as bringing dollars in. That's why that argument that economic developers make often is wrong, and why building local businesses is, in fact, a valid economic development strategy. The second benefit of building local businesses is that these businesses can meet local needs more effectively and help make our community different from other places. Local owners live in our community and understand their customers and tend to develop unique products and services based on that understanding. What people in Columbus might want is likely to be different from what people in Indianapolis want. Local businesses reflect that difference. That both meets the needs of our community and preserves and elevates Central Ohio's uniqueness. That uniqueness can attract visitors and new residents and new business and put Columbus in the national spotlight, as the Short North and German Village have done so well now for decades. So again, that's what I wanted to share. Thanks again for being here. I'm really eager to hear the conversation. So Ariana, take it away.
Hello, everyone. Okay, so I truly believe that small businesses are the heartbeat of our community. So to the panelists, what do you think the culture of entrepreneurism is here in Columbus and in this region?
I'll go first. Okay, I was elected. Good afternoon. I'm Ina Kinney. I'm the founder and CEO of Economic and Community Development Institute. And what I'd like to say, and by the way, Bill, you did a great job. We believe in local businesses. In fact, our entire mission is focused on entrepreneurship for startup and existing companies. The climate in Columbus, we always felt, and actually after reading the article, and I was also interviewed in the article in the Business First, I believe wholeheartedly that Columbus does have a very vibrant small business community, and in fact, seeing and looking at the people in this room, many of you do support small business community. We have City of Columbus, we have banks, we have foundations, and ECDI is in the forefront of that by providing capital, access to education, training, and mentorships. We have been doing this for 12 years now, and it's tremendous. I mean, Columbus does have a lot of industry. Columbus does have a lot of universities and big corporations. However, I do believe that without those anchor companies, the entrepreneurship would not be where it is right now in Columbus. Certainly, people can do more. From a procurement perspective, we always have believed that the bigger companies should be putting aside some of their dollars towards contracting with minority and women-based businesses, because at the end of the day, that does create additional opportunities for those businesses to succeed as well as create jobs. So I will.
Well, I think one of them, you're right on about that, and I think one of the most important things in a culture of entrepreneurism is passion. And to start a new business by yourself, you have to be really committed. You have to be willing to, frankly, not make an income for a while. You have to be willing to take risks. And one of the important things in this city that we need to continue to develop is you need to know ways to get help, which means you need to really know how to network, which means we need to find ways to make it easier for people to connect. In what we do at the Center for Social Enterprise Development, we're dealing with a special kind of business where the passion for social impact is really a fire beyond anything, beyond just making a living. And what we're finding is they're used to toiling in the vineyards by themselves, as I say, and being able to take risk, connect with others, get that encouragement, because an entrepreneur always thinks that everything's going wrong and it's all their fault until they find that it's happening to all other 18 people they're talking to, and so it gives them the encouragement to go through it. I think the other part of a culture of entrepreneurism is what we'd often call the ecosystem of entrepreneurialism, and that's finding sources of capital that understand that it's worth the effort even though the majority of new businesses don't make it. But while they were trying to make it, they did create jobs, they did produce a product, they did help our economy. So the idea that something failed is not a failure, it's just the entrepreneurism. If you look at the tech space, you'll find that their failure rate is 60 to 75% or more. But we think it's a sure thing. It's actually starting a small business is probably more of a sure thing than trying to create the new Facebook.
So I'm Lisa Daris, and this forum is very timely today because the first article that I read this morning as I was going through my social media feeds was an article about Dole and how they have covered up a listeria issue that has been going on since 2014. And the article, of course, cited a small business, not so small anymore, but it cited Jenny's Ice Cream, home-based here in Columbus, and it juxtaposed the two. I mean, we have the same situation. Jenny's entrepreneurship, her spirit of entrepreneurship, took on that issue in the right manner and dealt with it, where you have Dole light years away from probably what people consider as an entrepreneur type of company, covering it up time and time again until it leads to issues going on in Springfield, Ohio. So I can tell you in answer to the question about what is the culture of entrepreneurship, it is a culture of transparency and a culture of honesty and a culture of integrity. And that is really what drew me to Slow Money, which I'll get to talk to a little bit more here during this afternoon. But to me, that really is what the culture of entrepreneurship is. And Jenny's Ice Cream is a shining example of it.
So why is the Midwest so behind? Is it culture, or is our community risk adverse? What do you think the issues are?
Where to begin? Let me just talk about this special area of social entrepreneurship. I think one of the reasons we're so behind is that the only ones we've really seen locally have been very well-established nonprofits that could self-fund. So there was no need for publicity. The old social enterprises in town are Goodwill, Life Care Alliance, even Pearl Interactive Network, which is the largest in town. It's in 23 states, $14 million. Have you heard of it? They had to bootstrap. Bootstrapping is you grow by creating your own savings, growing and reinvesting. So most of the social enterprises in town, we have a directory online. I encourage you to check it out at cincohio.com. There are over 85 that are currently operating in town, and do we really know about them? So I think one of the reasons we're so behind is we don't put enough effort into finding out how we can buy local. In social enterprise, if you go to our directory and you want to have an event, buy coffee, get health care, buy a book, you name it, you can give it to a local business that not only creates local jobs but creates social impact, much like a nonprofit. So a lot of the reason we're behind is we just don't talk about it. We need to celebrate it. Mayor Coleman talked about we have to brag about ourselves. I think we need to start bragging more about our small businesses.
I agree. So thank you. Good job. You mentioned the ecosystem in Columbus. I think Columbus, as I said earlier, is a phenomenal city that does support entrepreneurs, but I think there needs to be more players in the arena, if you will, that are supportive of those endeavors. I mean, I'll give you an example. We have City of Columbus, we have Franklin County who are very involved with entrepreneurship and in fact fund organizations such as ECDI who can provide technical assistance, training, and access to capital. However, what I haven't seen in Columbus as much as I've seen in other cities is larger corporations that are involved in this endeavor. I talked about setting aside specific dollars for procurement, for contracts. Foundations should also be involved in developing loan funds and also investments within the local communities to support the entrepreneurship, because I think it comes back down to money. People are starting businesses, many of them, like you said, are doing it by the bootstraps. However, in order to really create significant jobs, you have to have access to capital. We have Jackie Winchester here from one of our partner banks, PNC, and we have many banks that invest money in ECDI that we can in turn put back out in the community. I'd like to brag about what we've done in the 12 years, and I think it's very important to understand that ECDI has invested $32 million in loan capital within the 12-year period, and that's all in support of businesses that we've created. As a result, those businesses have created 6,000 jobs. Majority of those jobs are for minority and low income and women entrepreneurs, which is very important. These jobs would not be created if organizations like ECDI, the banks in the city, and all of the investors that we've had over the years would not be supportive of that. So again, I think more people need to be involved in creating this ecosystem. We have universities here. We have huge corporations. We have foundations. This week is a Small Business Week. It puts focus on what we do as a community. I think these small business weeks should be happening all the time. It's not once a year that we focus on that. We should make it a practice to buy local, shop local, and also invest local. And that's what ECDI stands for.
I would just echo those sentiments. I think sometimes I question whether some of the spirit of competitiveness is a little too strong in the Midwest because it tends to sometimes isolate small businesses, and we're not talking to each other as much. So thanks to the folks out there like ECDI who create forums for small business entrepreneurs to talk and to exchange ideas. I also really agree with the idea of having some of the larger industries shepherd some of the smaller businesses. For example, the Kogo Bike and Mutual Medical partnership here in town. Bike sharing is a big deal for a city like Columbus. There's lots of cities that are similar to Columbus that have that, and it took us a while to get there. So it's those types of partnerships that we really need to cultivate and see more of that happening in order for those small businesses to thrive. So.
Great. So at the Ohio SBDC at Columbus State, we focus on providing new business owners and existing business owners with all types of advising, startup capital, et cetera. So last year we facilitated $34 million in financing. And we time and time again, we see that as being one of the biggest obstacles for new business owners or existing business owners. What are your thoughts about that, and what other obstacles do you see for small business owners?
As I mentioned earlier, financing, and you agreed to that, is one of the key components. It's as important for a business to get, we don't want them to borrow too much, but too little also causes problems. throughout the life of the business. We just have to be very proactive. It's not only financing, but like I said, it is a big piece of that. I think the training, the mentorships are very important. At ECDI, we have a Women's Business Center, which focuses specifically on women-based entrepreneurs by providing them mentors, by providing them space, in essence, an incubation space. Many times when businesses just start, they need space, they need help with licensing, bonding, insurance. There's so many things, creating cash flows. And I think, again, we have to embrace their needs as a community so we can all help them together as a group. Financing, although, is very important. And our average loan continues to be about $28,000. We go up to $350,000. However, that space between, $15,000 to $75,000 is what we see for a startup business. For more existing businesses that are trying to expand, they get a little bit in a higher range.
I think one of the other things that would be great to develop in our city is we're really been focusing on institutional sources of capital. And by definition, institutional sources of capital fall into pots. They fall into criteria. And so does your business meet the criteria for this, whether it's a location or who owns it or the nature of it or who you hire? And one of the things that I find really kind of exciting is the real energy in entrepreneurship now is in the under 35 population. And the under 35 population is a potential source of capital from individuals. It started with crowdfunding. The SEC is changing its rules now to make it more possible. I'm pretty excited that this summer, I think the formal announcement date has been set, Kiva Columbus is coming to town, which is a very small microloan program up to $5,000, interest-free. But what makes it work is it's peer-supported. It's kind of underwritten by your colleagues and friends rather than by the rules that are set up by a regulation or something else. What we're also, one of the things that we're trying to do in our center is to get more women involved in angel investing, that is, individuals taking risk. We're having a visit next Tuesday from a lady from Pipeline Angels, which is a program out of New York City that's committed exclusively to introducing women to angel investment in women-owned social enterprises, so that they'll it's a toe dip approach, because we're not going to make a difference if we depend on just institutional sources. Institutions have too many constraints on them by law or regulation to really be able to adapt to truly innovative new ideas.
So, Allan, thanks for that segue, because that's exactly what Slow Money does. So Slow Money creates a community around investing in small businesses in the agricultural sector. So the tagline for Slow Money is investing as if food, farms, and fertility mattered. And taking that and going a little deeper with that, we see this romantic idea based around all the farmers markets. I mean, the farmers markets across the nation, especially here in Ohio, have increased something like 7-fold in the last few years. And it's a very romantic idea, but the fact of the matter is that a lot of those farmers, to get the produce and to get a person to staff that booth, sometimes does not make a good business model. So we ask people, if you're shopping at a farmer's market, and you'd like to do more to support your local farmer, here's how. And so we connect people through outreach and education, and we talk to them about things like self-directed IRAs and ways to infuse capital into your community farm or your food producer. And speaking of Kiva, Kiva rates the agricultural sector as the top successful rate for repayment of loans. Because let's face it, if you're a farmer, where are you going to go? You're connected to that land, right? I mean, that is your community. And so you're going to be very careful to pay that money back to your own community. So Kiva is a great thing for the city. I'm actually an entrepreneur myself, although I'm a little over 35 years old. But we received a Kiva loan, which was fantastic. Forge Columbus has really perpetuated the Kiva relationship with the city of Columbus, which has been fantastic. But I think one of the things, just to kind of get back to the question, is what are some of the challenges? It really is that non-institutional access to capital. When farmers go to a bank and ask for capital, it's high risk and high rates. And that makes a big difference when a person is starting out with a small organic farm. And so slow money is there to fill that gap.
If I may, one more thing, I'm sorry. ECDI, about 5 years ago, we developed a program or investment tool, if you will, went to the state of Ohio and did a filing with the Department of Commerce. The filing was specifically to have individuals invest money through a note. It's called Invest Local Ohio. To date, we have raised about $700,000 through ILO. I hope my figures are right, by the way, guys. And an individual can invest a minimum of $1,000 and as much as they would actually want. And we pay back those investors on a 3-year note. It's a 2% back investment. And on a 5-year note, it's 3%. What it does is it allows us to engage local individuals that are shopping local. We want to keep the money back in our communities. So it's a great opportunity to actually see the businesses that you're assisting, and it's a great opportunity to also help those businesses create opportunities for themselves and have access to capital. So we need more of those type of I keep on doing this, I apologize. We need more of those type of products available within our communities so we can assist those entrepreneurs in the startup stages.
So given our community, what do you think are the opportunities for someone that is thinking about starting a business? Where would you point them? Like, what industries would you point them to that would make sense here in Columbus, given that we're very service-oriented?
I can speak to that, and obviously, my answer is going to be something in the agricultural field. I mean, we're sitting here in an urban center. You can drive 20 minutes in almost every direction and see a functioning farm here from Columbus, Ohio. The fact that we're having issues right now, big issues with the water up in Lake Erie caused by the runoff of the fertilizers, something has to change with the way that we're approaching agriculture. And the door is wide open for an entrepreneur, and there are some that are looking into this, but we need more. We need more folks who are looking into better ways to raise agriculture that doesn't pollute our waterways. So that would be my recommendation.
I think one area of tremendous opportunity is, frankly, the nonprofit sector embracing social enterprise. We're familiar with many examples of nonprofits who want to be able to do more for their mission, but philanthropy just can't keep up. We have Goodwill stores generate over $1 million a year per store so they can do their rehabilitation programs. AIDS Resource Center, now named Equitas, has created a for-profit pharmacy that after just 3 years is throwing off over $1.5 million that can support services you don't need philanthropy to do. Just within sight of us, COSI Columbus in the last 10 years has grown 50% without having to increase its fundraising by $1. So in many ways, we look at our nonprofit sector to do so much for our community. They can embrace entrepreneurship to be able to supplement that. And we could give examples after example after example of that. I think one of the other things in terms of opportunities is I think it might be a mistake for someone who's looking to go into business to kind of say, what's the best field to go into? Because that conversation says high tech. I think the most important thing, and what we see when we work with people trying to start a business is you have to make sure There's a demand for what you're doing. The thing that makes entrepreneurship so different is it doesn't matter what you think they need, it's what the customer thinks they need. So the most important thing, I think, in looking for opportunities is to see what do people want and what's missing, and do you have the idea and the passion to be able to address that?
I think passion is probably we get that question a lot at the center, and our answer is always, it gets to be something that you're absolutely passionate about because you're going to be doing it 24/7, 7 days a week. Enjoy it.
25/7.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so in a few minutes, we're going to be moving on to audience questions. So final thought, how can a startup best position themselves for success?
Find some advisors, put together an advisory board, find the talent that's out there. One of the real strengths of Columbus is how many business experts want to help. They just are looking for an avenue and a vehicle to do that. Our town has never been good at setting up a good mentorship program, and if anyone has some great ideas of models that have worked elsewhere, and I'm not talking about get coffee every month with someone to talk about how to grow up. We're talking about business advice, how to solve a problem, very focused, and how to make it work. We'd love to have ideas on a model that could really work in the city.
My answer is short. Get advice, ask for help, and make connections and do a lot of homework. I think one of the reasons why businesses do not succeed is they don't take those steps. And when you do have your business plan, make sure you follow it and you operationalize.
Lisa, anything?
It's a quote from someone, I'm not going to remember who it is, but entrepreneurship should be aimed at creating the world that you want to see in your life. And if you can do that, then I think you'll be successful.
Great. So it's CMC's tradition to take audience questions. Please state your name, ask your question, and we thank you in advance for not making long editorial comments. Let's proceed with the first question. Anyone out there? Have we just answered all of your questions and you're going home inspired and enlightened?
Hi, I'm Pat Schmucky-Barker, and Ariana, I'm curious if you could tell us some of the types of for-profit small businesses that your organization has funded.
Honestly, what I love about my job is it's never the same day twice. So last year we saw anything we have 4 centers under one roof. We have the Ohio SBDC that provides core services, so advising, classes. We're teaching like 200 days out of the year. And then we provide referrals. So if you're looking for a small business, CPA, attorney, et cetera, we provide those referrals. We have the manufacturing center that works with manufacturers who are creating widgets all the way to light industrial manufacturing. We have the Latino Center that provides all of our services in English and Spanish. So if you'd like to come out and learn how to start a business in Spanish, we welcome everyone. And then the International Trade and Assistance Center that, once you prove your product or service here in the States, the next step, if it makes sense, obviously, is to go abroad. And so we work with the state of Ohio on mission trips to China, South America, Europe, depending on what makes sense for your business. So because of all of those services, we work with, independent contractors that are consultants all the way up to, we have helped facilitate a lot of the well-known names here in Columbus. The beauty of our job is our industries are all over the place. Like I said, our mission is to provide services for small business owners, and technically the SBA's definition of a small business is anyone under 500 employees. We probably work with, the maximum is probably 100 employees, because then at that point, we pass them on to advisors that can work with them on a greater scale. But we work with absolutely everyone.
Ina, can you tell us about a few of your businesses that you've also funded?
Yes, I can, absolutely. There's been so many, but I'm going to focus on Chris Crater. Chris came to us 5 years ago, and we gave him his first loan. He was starting his first restaurant in German Village, and the name of the restaurant is Harvest Pizza. Okay, my memory is going, You know what, he didn't have much collateral. In fact, he always says he used this like 1980-something Nissan as collateral. We gave him his first loan. I think it was like $15,000, $20,000. That was his first loan. Then Chris, you guys, I'm so sorry. Chris came back to us to open up his second restaurant, which was another Harvest Pizza, thank you. We gave him a loan for that. Then Chris came back to us for his third restaurant, Sycamore. Thank you, Douglas. Yeah, it's great to have your staff here. Sycamore. Since then, Chris has opened up, I think, 5 restaurants. We've invested $350,000 in his businesses. Chris has created 180 jobs, that I know for a fact. And Chris also got a loan from a bank about a year ago as a result of ECDI's investments in him. His businesses are now, he's made $10 million, his company is worth $10 million, and just recently we have made an equity investment, so we actually partnered with Chris, and we have a 34% ownership in his latest endeavor, which is downtown Columbus, and it's called, what? Paloma, that's right. That's his new endeavor in Italian Village. So what I'm saying is these are the type of entrepreneurs, they're everyday Main Street businesses. Truckers, home health care, retail stores. That's what we do every single day of our week, and we invest money in them. That's the main thing that separates us from others, is we put money into those businesses.
And let me give you some examples of other startups. Many of you have heard of Hot Chicken Takeover. They started with a Kickstarter campaign. You might have heard of Clean Turn. They started with a grant from a Chicago foundation, and after they got going, they got a loan from the Columbus Foundation. So there's many paths to do that. The Tony Wells Foundation is a very good source of co-investment. They just made a major a loan to the PAST Foundation, which is a 501c3, to basically create centers where all the high schools from the region can come in for special work in STEM fields. So these are all different sources of capital that are starting to become available in a slow trickle, and hopefully we'll be able to build it up into a bigger flow.
I'm going to just jump in real quick and just say that Slow Money has funded places like Acre Restaurant and a goat cheese creamery located in Northeast Ohio. We funded a green bean picker for a farm here near Columbus. So those are the kind of loans that we are catalysts for.
Center. You want me to do it again? Good afternoon. My name is Allison Goebel. I'm with the Greater Ohio Policy Center. And my question is this. So Columbus, like other cities, are interested in retaining millennials. Millennials these days have very high student loan debt. And I'm wondering, how do we keep these folks who look like very high risk on paper interested both in the city but also into the pathways that you're talking about? And while certainly crowdsourcing and kickstarting campaigns can help some of them, at the end of the day, some of these entrepreneurs or to-be entrepreneurs need capital, and that, student loan debt and other personal debt may prevent them from even considering it or even being considered as a possible investment.
I can go ahead and answer that. We work with a lot of startup businesses. In fact, startup businesses make up majority of our loan portfolio, about 65%. Oftentimes, they don't have collateral. Oftentimes, they do not have guarantors. The money that we lend, majority of it comes from the money that we borrow from banks, from SBA, we have 48 sources of money. What we need as a community, and we've talked about this earlier, is this investments that come to organizations such as ECDI that we don't have to pay back. So our underwriting standards, if you will, could be a lot more lenient to assist those companies or those individuals that are in the really true startup phase and they need a little bit more time to pay back, or maybe do it as a grant to them initially. I think all of those things are open for community conversations. It's not ECDI's goal to not include others in these things. If these are the things that are needed within our community, we need to address them together. The other thing that the startups really need is is space. Many of them cannot afford to have their own space, so incubators are very important to, at least initially, help those businesses. They shouldn't have a lot of expenses that are needed in order to have a startup.
We're getting a lot in shared spaces. There's the Idea Foundry, bottoms-up co-op is going to start. ECDI has an incubator. There's many models that are creating on that, but equally important, I think, for an individual who has a lot of student debt, the problem they have is most of the institutional sources of capital will ask for a personal guarantee, which they're in no position to provide. That's why what we need is angel investors, individuals who are willing to take a risk on a business concept without requiring personal guarantees, which is not what's required in the angel investment world. But we're still developing that. We've mostly done it in high tech here in town. We need to develop it. A number of people are working to develop angel-like funds. We're working on one for social enterprise called the CINCO Fund. I know Paul Profit is working for one through Sundown Rundown. The note program that you have is terrific, Inna. But fundamentally, we need to break away from the personal guarantee. As I said earlier, institutional regulations force that, and someone with a lot of student debt just does not have access to it.
So a lot of our advisors are reform bankers. I'm one of them. And our organization works with a lot of the financial institutions here, but we also pride ourselves on working with other financial institutions outside of Columbus that tend to take a little bit more risk. We have a bank down in Florida that our partners here like to work with. It's called Celtic Bank. They are an SBA lender. They're non-depository, so we get the loans from Celtic, and then the local institution can continue to keep the depository relationship here, which is great for our funders. But then we also, we work with a lot of the CDFIs that all of these by nature are willing to take a little bit more risk than the traditional banks. The idea is for us to get them started. And the big reason that the banks ask for a personal guarantee is it keeps the business owner engaged. Even if there's not a lot of collateral or assets that they have to work with, the idea is that the business owner, if they're forming an LLC or another entity, it keeps them focused on making sure that they are a true partner with the financial institution on keeping the business up and running, successful, et cetera. So, the idea with our center is if we can't provide them conventional financing to start out with, then we work with all the other institutions, and then once they hit the 3-year mark, which most conventional banks consider that to be the startup period, after they hit the 3-year mark, they have a greater chance of getting financing through our local institutions. And so that's always our goal, to get them into the financial institutions where the cost of capital is not as high.
That's the hardest part. That's that first 3 years you have to get through.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for
and I think one of the realities is one of the biggest impediments to entrepreneurship is to know by starting a company you're risking personal bankruptcy. And that's why we really need high-risk capital to the business that doesn't really tie into your personal finances. And frankly, all the entrepreneurs that I'm working with are putting their heart and soul and butt in it. We don't have to worry about them needing a personal guarantee for them to still focus.
Exactly. Well said. I think we have more questions. Yeah.
Hi, Paul Profit, Sundown Group. Alan stole some of my thunder, but that's okay. So really kind of the elephant in the room that we've kind of danced around for the success of entrepreneurship here in Central Ohio is kind of the lack of early stage risk capital, not loans, but actually the angel investors that Allan has alluded to. So for the panel, what are some of the strategies to try to get these accredited and institutional investors off the bench and into the game? And then as kind of a follow-up to the audience, if you're an accredited investor over $1 million, excluding your house and net worth, 200K in revenue for the past 2 years, or 300K with your spouse or partner, why aren't you guys in the game with investing in startups and entrepreneurs?
That's going to be my answer, by the way. Well, I think it starts out by having these type of forums, right? Unless we educate, unless we inform and really put together a strategy as a community, nothing's going to happen. So I challenge all of you to put your money where your mouth is. Is that how they say it? Anyway, we all have to be involved. You know, I've invested my own money, my children's money, in ECDI's loan funds because they earn more than the conventional money that we have with depositories. You know, we pay 2 to 3%, and the money stays local. So I guess my job is to fundraise right now, right? So come and see us, come to ECDI and invest your dollars. It will make sure you get paid back and the dollars stay within a community. And we'll leverage those dollars, a minimum of what, 8 to 1 we say, 8 to 1, and under those dollars go towards administration. So that's one thing that we can do. The other thing is we need to convince the larger corporations and foundations to create these angel funds and to have leaders within our community. You know, I could say anything I want, he could say whatever, but I think we need some champions that are, you know, strong and that have a, people will follow them, right? That's what we need. We need champions within this community. So who's signing up?
Yeah, I think this notion of having more forums is really important because one of the problems is if someone's really interested in angel investment, they know about the national funds. They see the publicity of national. So we have to create our own publicity. But I would like to give a shout out to 2 companies, the Safe Light Corporation and AEP have chosen to be angel investors in social enterprise, and they have subscribed to a fund to do this. And we are excited they're doing that and just hope that more companies will see the advantages of using their balance sheet to make this world a better place, not just their philanthropic grants from their P&Ls.
You want us to wrap up?
I just have one thing to add. When I mentioned self-directed IRA, other than the reformed bankers in the room, how many people know what a self-directed IRA is? Okay, more than I thought, which is great. So Slow Money does that education and outreach, and we actually had a workshop on how to set up a self-directed IRA a few years ago, and it was very well received. A lot of people don't know what it is. They don't know the empowerment that they have with their own money. The reason I got involved in Slow Money to begin with was because I saw what my money was doing halfway across the globe. This was during the BP oil crisis in the Gulf, and I was really mad at BP, and I saw where my money was going, and a lot of it was going to BP, to support BP, and I thought, whoa, I've got to change this. So I started investigating on how to invest locally, and that's how I discovered Slow Money. So if you look at kind of where your portfolios and where your investments are, and if they don't align with your mission, it might be time to look into something different.
All right, we have time for 2 more questions. Go ahead, Ryan.
Hi, my name is Ryan Schick. I'm the City of Columbus Small Business Concierge. Jane, you're going to forgive me for 1 second. Columbus Startup Week, presented by JP Morgan, is taking place over at View on Liberty Street. I highly recommend you check it out. It's a great snapshot this week of our ecosystem. But I wanted to touch a little bit on the ecosystem. And Ina, I'm going to throw this question directly at you, given our short amount of time, because Allan would love to hear what you have going on as well. As custodians of city money and through the Community Development Block Grant, could you tell us about your new incubator win that you've started up?
Thank you, Ryan. Our new incubator was funded in part by the City of Columbus, and the incubator is ready to go. It's a co-working space for entrepreneurs in the early startup phases of their business, which has 24/7 access. We also provide them with training, technical assistance, and most importantly, mentorship and co-working space that is I think it's pretty phenomenal. So come and see us. Is there anything else you want me to say? And I want to thank Ryan. So thank you, Ryan, in this development department. But city has been very much involved in everything that we do, both city and the county. I think it's very important. Again, going back to talking about the ecosystem, we have a great ecosystem in Columbus right now with the public support. However, I think it's important to get more private support in the mix. Thank you, Ryan.
Last question.
I'm Chuck Lind, and I just wanted to give a little shout out to the food truck entrepreneurs and ask the panel real quickly what it took to make that happen.
What's the question? I'm sorry.
What made the food trucks work?
I mean, it's
What?
the next.
Oh,
It's the
okay.
next up and coming industry. I mean, and we've had quite a few clients that, we've sent over to ECDI for kitchen space, and they're doing really well. And it's a fantastic way for entrepreneurs to test out different new products to see if it's something that will work here in our community. I mean, and that's why, ECDI, the commissary, shoot, I'm missing one.
That's all. You don't need to talk about anybody.
Commissary and, sorry?
The kitchen.
The kitchen.
The kitchen.
I'm thinking of another one. But yeah, I mean, we send them down to ACENET as well, and it's been,
Right.
it's a fantastic opportunity for those that want to test out, possibly owning a restaurant someday.
Thank you for the shout out. ECDI, we got into the business of food entrepreneurship about 8 years ago. 23% of our clients represent food-based businesses, from a startup phase to food trucks to food carts, all the way to the restaurants. So about 7 years ago, we purchased a facility in Old Leonard. It had there were 3 warehouses. We converted one of the warehouses into a commercial kitchen, which is USDA certified, and is used 24/7 by food-based entrepreneurs. In addition to that, we have food trucks that use our facility both for space as well as for gigs. So we go out there and we get them gigs. We help them with social media, marketing, access to capital. So when I said one-stop shop, it truly is a one-stop shop. Come and see us, ask questions, and most importantly, donate. Thank you.
And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Carol.
Thank you.
I
I hope you all enjoyed today's forum. We encourage you to continue the conversation in the back with coffee and cookies, and I know you all will stay for a while. Any questions that you didn't get answered yet, we'll have a conversation. You can view and share today's forum and all of our forums on CTV Columbus Television, on WOSU and PBS affiliates statewide, through the Ohio channel, and anytime on CMC's website via YouTube. And I noticed on Channel 34 WOSU at 9 o'clock on Monday nights, they are now showing the Columbus Metropolitan Club Forum. Please thank our speakers, Ina Kinney, Allan Proctor, Lisa Daris, Ariana Ulloa-Olavarrieta. Say it for me. You said you would.
Ariana Ulloa-Olavarrieta.
And she
Super
says it with
close.
such a lilting, beautiful accent. Also, thank Bill LaFayette. Thank you. And thank you for being here. I hope to see you next week.